Welcome to the Occupational Safety Leadership Podcast, episode number 55, Incident Investigations for Process Safety Management. Let's get started. In today's episode, this is going to be taken from the Process Safety Management CFR, which is 29 CFR 1910.119. And in this one, we're going to sit down and talk about incident investigations. There's a lot of different ways to go through incident investigations. But what we're going to do is sit down and talk about the standard itself, whereas there's a myriad of different ways to sit down and do this. But let's just look at the specifics out here as part of the standard. So the employer shall investigate each incident that resulted in or had the potential to have a catastrophic release. The incident investigation shall start no later than 48 hours after the incident. And they're asking you to form a team in this where one person has knowledge of the process. When you look at forming a team, the operators, the maintenance, these personnel really know the hazards. They really know what's going on out there. So they have a lot of knowledge. They are just really fantastic at sitting down and helping the process then, because the big thing that we want to do is learn from this. We hope that we didn't have an incident, and not just that, but now that we've had a incident, and of course the definition is it resulted in or could have resulted in. We want to make sure that we learn from this, never happens again, and not just that, but we do everything we can to share this data to make sure that it doesn't happen at other facilities as well. Let's go on to the next slide here. So it talks about what the report will have as a minimum. The date, it's going to have the date, date of the incident, the date that the investigation began, description of the incident, factors that contributed. It's almost never only one thing. There's typically a number of factors out there. So think about an onion. Onion has a lot of layers to it then. So it's typically not only one layer that failed, but there's typically a couple things. Some layers are super easy. It's the process vessel that failed itself. But when you think about other layers, the management, the attitude of the management, of the employees, management commitment. Did they talk a big game, but no money was ever given to it? So there's a lot of ways that we're going to sit down and look at all the factors in. And then finally, the recommendations resulting from the investigation. So when we look at the recommendations and corrective actions, there has to be basically a list of what you're going to address and what you're not going to address out there. I like to think that when we do a investigation that we're going to address everything, but I also understand that it's management's responsibility to sit down and say, this is exactly how we're going to fix this incident, and this is exactly how we're going to go forward. So the report, of course, should be reviewed with the affected personnel, including any contractors out there. More and more work sites are starting to farm out maintenance as part of this. So not that it's more difficult to share with contractors, it just adds another layer, another group of people that we have to sit down and really cover then on this. And these again are the true experts out there. So we should be including them in all the decisions that we're doing. And then finally, accident investigations shall be retained for 5 years. For me, I keep all of mine because it's a really nice way of showing here's where we could have had a catastrophic incident, and here's exactly what we did to make sure that we don't have one out there. So it's also a very nice way to get out these lessons learned to your other sites that you have. Because if you have the incident, or I should say, if you have a lot of the contributing factors at one of your sites, it could also be a contributing factor at many of the sites because we know that things like management commitment, employee involvement, and all that is typically comes from a corporate level about what is and what is not going to happen at these sites. And so if it's happening at one site, it's probably happening at another site as well. And that is it for this nice, short, and sweet episode. So, this was episode 55, where we talked about incident investigations for process safety management. We did not get into these specifics because there's a lot of ways to really sit down and look at these different incidents. What we talked about is just to make sure that your report has to have the following things. We want to form a team. We want to have maintenance and operations and the people who do this process. We want their input as much as we possibly can. They are the true experts out there. My name is Dr. David Ayers. Have a safe day.